So what are variables? So a variable, I've kind of used that word a few times, but a variable is a quantity that can have more than a single value. So types of variables, you can have dependent variables, which are changes according to changes in the independent variable. You can have the independent variable, which is a variable that is changed to test the effect on the dependent variable. So talk more about those in a minute. Constant is a factor that does not change when other variables change, and then a control is the standard by which the test results can be compared. Okay. So experimental design. So test one factor or variable at a time. If you're designing an experiment, you don't want to test multiple things. If I change two things and I have an effect, I don't know what actually changed or what made that effect. So dependent variable, again, is a factor that may be affected by changes in the independent variable. Also call this the measured variable sometimes, or the output variable. This is what you're measuring at the end to see if you had a change. The independent variable is a factor that is changed by the researcher. This is the manipulated variable. Manipulated meaning you change it somehow. Or the input variable. This is decided at the beginning of the experiment to see if it has an effect on the output variable. So the independent variable is the input variable. The dependent variable would be the output variable. So some examples of variables. So if we recall the effects of acid on rocks example, the amount of acid applied is the independent variable. So at the beginning you decide we're going to do no acid on this one, we're going to do 1 unit on this one, we're going to do 2 units on this one. The effect, bubbles, loss of mass, etc., are the dependent variables. So again, the amount of acid is an independent variable. You decide that at the beginning. Does it bubble or does it lose mass? Does it produce gas, etc., are the dependent variables. Other factors and variables. So constants, we mentioned that earlier. Constants are factors that do not change during an experiment. So in the previous example, the type of rocks used, the type of acid used, and procedures are constants. How long did you leave the acid on the rock? How much acid did you use? This says type of acid. Well, how much acid was used? That's another constant. So if you do multiple tests with 1 unit of acid, you want the same 1 unit, 1 milliliter or something like that. Also, really sometimes need to think about things like temperature and other things like that. So control is used to show that the results of an experiment are a result of the condition being tested. So in the previous example, the rock without acid applied to it is actually the control. Usually some unmodified condition. So if you're talking about like testing a new medicine, like testing vaccines or something like that, the control there would be somebody who got something that they thought was the medicine, but wasn't actually the medicine. So there'd be a group of people that didn't actually get any kind of active medicine to see if that has any effect versus the actual medicine. So that'd be a control. So there's another example in the physical science book of microgravity plant growth. Again, study the effects of studying the effects of microgravity on plants. Basically, think about the space station, think about traveling to Mars, stuff like that. We're going to have to grow food in space. Can't pack enough to make the whole trip. But the dependent variable here would be the plant growth. How much does the plant grow? Now, you can measure this different ways. You can measure the mass of the plant. You can measure the number of leaves, the size of the leaves, surface area of leaves, number of roots. There's all kinds of different ways you can measure this. But in general, plant growth. Independent variable is gravity. You have Earth normal gravity, growing plants on Earth, versus microgravity, growing them in space, like on the space station. You have constants, which in this case would be the soil type, the plant type, the amount of light, the amount of water. Those would be constants in this experiment. Control would be plants grown on Earth using the same constants. So we'd grow plants on Earth, grow them in space, and really the only difference would be the gravity, the amount of gravity they had. And then you can compare the results. So observational studies, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but scientists cannot always control the conditions of an experiment. So cannot control temperature, rainfall, or atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, for example. We can't control when a star goes supernova. We can't control a lot of things out in the universe. We just have to kind of, we do observational studies. We can't control things on Saturn to look at the atmosphere of the planet or whatever. These are referred to as studies usually instead of experiments, or again, observational studies. So observational studies involve observation and data collection, but do not include a control of any sort. These may lead to experiments based on those observations. But again, a lot of studies of bigger systems, like I said, space or like the atmosphere and things like that, you can't really go out and change the entire atmosphere of the Earth. You just have to make observational studies and try to connect data as best you can. Analysis. So data is carefully collected during the experiment or investigation. Data is analyzed using statistics, graphs, tables, and charts are used to display that data. All the results should be included, even unexpected ones, especially unexpected ones, because sometimes the unexpected results are the most interesting ones. A lot of really good discoveries have been total accidents that people didn't really plan on doing. They just made enough notes, though, along the way and kept good observations that they were able to repeat it when they discovered something. Important discoveries frequently come from those unexpected results. Scientific inferences are based on observations made using scientific methods, so all possible explanations must be considered. Other researchers will raise questions about other explanations, so you need to consider all explanations because other people are going to read this and they will consider those explanations, and if you haven't thought about those, you're not going to be able to answer them when they ask about it. Conclusion. So statistical analysis of data leads to conclusions about the research. For a hypothesis to be widely accepted, results must be repeatable. Many times, a conclusion does not support the original hypothesis. If this happens, the hypothesis must be revised and new experiments are conducted. So you're at the conclusion here, and again, you can kind of recycle a lot of this. This is a very simplified scientific method here. This may lead to additional hypotheses and tests. Communicating results. So scientists have the responsibility to truthfully and accurately report their methods and results. There's a lot of ethics in science, and basically if people don't follow those ethical rules, they tend to be discredited in the scientific community and they're kind of out of a job. Communication allows others to learn of new discoveries and conduct new investigations based on previous investigations. You have published articles, you have presentations given at meetings or conferences, you can have scientific posters such as this one over here. So there are different ways that data get communicated to people. Peer review. Basically, before being published, methods and results are closely examined by the scientists publishing the results and by other scientists in the same field. Must eliminate any bias in the results. Bias occurs when a scientist's expectations changes how the results are analyzed or the conclusions are made. So if you're testing a new medicine and you're the drug maker, you're going to want it to work. So you're going to have a bias to that working. So you're going to look for any data you can to show that it works. So this occurs if some data are ignored or certain data are emphasized. So that can result in bias. And again, the whole idea here is other scientists basically get copies of anything that's about to be published and they read through it and suggest changes. So reducing bias. Basically, one thing, run as many trials as possible. Don't just do it once and say, oh, it's done. Run the test over and over again. Run the experiment several times. Keep accurate notes of all observations made. Use double-blind studies. This is really common in medicine. This is where like the researcher knows what's going on, but they give the medicine to doctors, and they give the medicine, and the doctors give the medicine to patients. The doctors don't know which medicine they have, if it's the actual medicine or what they call the placebo, which has no medicine in it. And the patients don't know, so it's double blind. The only person who knows is the researcher. Use measurable variables, so quantitative data as opposed to descriptions, qualitative data. If somebody says something's heavy, well, my version of heavy may not be your version of heavy. I got a bad back, so for example. So something that's I think is heavy, you may think that's really light. So you got to be careful about that. You got to use quantitative data. Thinking about your witch trials here, for an example, it makes no difference what I say. You've already decided I'm guilty. Gasp. The witch can read minds. So the whole idea of bias is this guy's already decided she's a witch, and it doesn't matter what she says. He's going to assume she is. Visualizing with models. So a scientific model is a physical or mathematical and or conceptual representation of a system of ideas, events, or processes. So this could be physical, it could be a mathematical model, it could be a conceptual model, which is like a description, could be a computer model, etc. These are used when the real thing is either too large or too small, too fast, too slow, too hazardous, or otherwise difficult to study directly. So we use models. Models change as more data is gathered. So, for example, early astronomers thought that the Earth was at the center of the solar system, but more observations revealed that the sun is at the center of the solar system, and our solar system isn't really at the center of anything. So, originally we thought the Earth was the center of everything, and now we know that it's not the center of anything really, except the Earth-Moon system, I guess. High-tech models. So scientific models don't have to be something physical that you can touch. Computer simulations are a good example that is becoming much more common. So flight simulators, like this is a flight simulator here. They use this to teach pilots how to fly really expensive aircraft so they don't crash them. Predicting effectiveness of medicines based on molecular properties. So you can have a computer model that may look at the shapes of molecules and be able to decide medicines that would actually be able to interact with those. Climate models used to predict effects of climate change. So these climate models can basically, they can input a bunch of data about weather patterns and ocean temperatures and atmospheric temperatures and stuff, and then get models about what's going on with the climate. Theories and laws. So a scientific theory is an explanation based on many observations during repeated investigations. So basically scientific theory is like a hypothesis that has been supported time and time again. These are consistent with observations, predictions that can be tested with scientific theories. Simplest explanation of observations can be changed with additional data. This right here is something to think about. A lot of our hypotheses and theories and stuff, we want the simplest explanation possible. We don't want it any more complicated than it needs to be. A scientific law is a principle that describes the behavior of a natural phenomenon but does not explain why it happens. There's a subtle difference between a theory and a law. A lot of people think that a theory becomes a law or vice versa, and that's not true. A theory has an explanation for it. A law does not. Okay? So again, a theory explains why natural phenomena occur. Laws summarizes a set of observations about natural phenomena without a why. These are both based on hypotheses, can be used to make predictions, can be revised. Good example of a law is gravity, the law of gravity. The laws of gravity. We don't know why there's gravity at this point. We haven't figured that out yet. We just know there's gravity. We know how it works. We can predict it. And then there are a lot of different scientific theories that we won't really get into right now. Limitations of science. So science can explain many things, but cannot answer every question, which bugs some people, I guess. There are some questions that science just can't answer. So science can only answer questions about things that can be tested or verified. So questions about values or emotions or opinions are not scientific. So surveys may provide data about how many people have a certain value or opinion, but it cannot prove that is true for everyone. Somebody might think this is a really beautiful piece of artwork. Somebody else may think this is hideous. That's your opinion. There's no way to prove that one way or another. You can't really prove that. You can't prove that pineapple doesn't go on pizza. Start an argument with that. There's no way to prove it. You can take an opinion poll, see how many people like it and how many people don't. You could test that by saying more people believe that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza than do believe it. That you could test. But you can't really test to verify pineapple doesn't go on pizza. Okay, that brings us up to standards and measurement. So we'll stop this and we'll do this as a separate video.